Okay, so a lot of people have asked about the consistency of the cake pop dough and the basic way of how I do things. So I'm hoping I have enough icing left. I do use the classic white or creamy vanilla from Pillsbury to make cake pops. I find that it's the best icing consistency to use. I know I've said that in previous videos, but there you go. Alright, so right now I have I think an 8-inch square cake or a 10-inch square cake that I've taken a serrated knife and cut off all the brown on the outside of it. This is a lemon cake, so you're seeing it very yellow. So I cut off all the edges, all the browned edges. So then I just start to crumble it up. Some people do this in their mixer. Hopefully my son doesn't start freaking out. Yeah! Hopefully he doesn't start screaming because he's just sitting in his high chair here in the kitchen. But so like I said, or what I was saying, I guess, crumbling it up. You can use, oh, that didn't last long. You can use a mixer. I just like to crumble it up with my hands. Try not to have too big of chunks, like this is a little bit too big. You'll end up breaking it up. But I find that if you cut the edges off, you don't get any dry, crunchy edges. Yeah! And your cake pop ball. Or cake ball, if that's all you're doing is an actual cake ball. So, for the most part, this looks good. Smells good. Nice and moist. I do not use box mix. I use everything. I make everything from scratch unless it is requested by a customer that I use a box mix. I will not use box mix on cake pops at all. You need to use a scratch mix because there's too much oil in a regular box mix. So I don't use it. I find that this is the best consistency is using a scratch cake. And when you're doing cake pops, if you want to go ahead and prep ahead, you can. You can bake off this cake, throw it in the freezer, you know, nice and saran wrapped and everything, throw it in the freezer and then cut off the brown part and then crumble it up a few days later or a week later if you're needing to prep because you're doing a lot of cake pops. I bought this today at Hobby Lobby. So far I really like it. It's just a rubber spatula and I'm using it to get the icing out of the can. Now right now for this amount I'm probably going to try and start off with about that much, that big of a dollop, and then I'll go from there. It's obviously not going to be enough, but I'm just going to continue to squish it in because you don't want to overdo it. If you overdo the icing, if you put in too much icing, it's just gonna, the cake pop is gonna fall, or your ball is gonna fall off your stick. So hopefully I can get the right angle for this. I know, Bubby, you're gonna have to wait a minute. Sorry, he's gonna fuss. It's not gonna be the best, most happy video, I suppose. Now, I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's starting to like form together. It's still a little bit breaking up some, but when I squeeze it, it does kind of hold the shape of my hand. But you want it to be able to hold into a ball without completely breaking up. And when you fold it, it should be able to be like kneaded like a dough. And right now, it's not collecting like it should, like a dough would. Just a second, I'm going to get him some snacks. Alright, here you go, buddy. Here you go, Bubba's. Here you go. Okay. Alright, new glove. Alright, about that. Okay. I like to use gloves. I think it's more sanitary. Now, when I go back in, because of the way the dough is right now, I call it dough, whatever. Since when I do you know, smush it down and fold it over, it's still crumbling. I'm going to go with about, I don't know, I guess maybe 3 tablespoons is what this would be, or 2. I don't know. You want to go a little bit at a time because, like I said, you don't want to go too much, because if you get too much, then it's just not, it's not going to work. The ball is going to fall off the stick. It's going to be too soft, so once you form it into a ball, it's not going to hold the shape. It's going to get flat on one side from sitting on the sheet, and it's just not going to be good. I know the consistency seems odd, that you want it to be more like a Play-Doh, and that might creep some people out for their, you know, their palate or the mouthfeel. I don't care for that so much, but it works. That's the best way to work it. The other thing with doing it this way by hand, you can feel if there's any hard spots, or if you didn't sift your flour, you're going to get little white dots in the cake, and you can kind of take those out. The other thing is, don't use the cake pop makers, the ones that are like just cake and then you dip it in chocolate. That's not a cake pop. You won't be too successful at that. People probably won't come back and order more from you if that's what you're doing for your business. Was that fun? Here, right there. There's more. Yeah. Okay. This seems like it's getting, I just found another little piece, hard spot. And that's the other thing with taking all the crumb off, you don't get any of those hard spots. I probably repeated myself how many times in this, but still. Okay, now I think this is showing better what the ball ends up looking like. Okay, I don't need a software update right now, people. My computer's checking for updates. Alright, so this is what it's going to end up like when you have the consistency of your cake pop dough the right way. Now, yeah, you're going to have little pieces in the bowl still, but this should stick together. When you fold it, it shouldn't just break apart and crumble down into the bowl. It should pretty well stick. The other way you can test it is break off a little piece, smush it around in your hands, and then roll it into a ball. If at this point it starts to crumble, or it's like way too soft and it's smushing, if it crumbles, you don't have enough frosting in it, and if it breaks up and starts to, or if it's too soft, it won't form into the ball, it'll lose the shape. You're going to have to add more cake to it, or bake another cake in order to make sure that you have enough, or that you don't have to ruin this batch of cake pop dough. So you should get a pretty perfect ball from doing it this way. When I make my cake pops, I like to use a scale to measure out, so I have an exact amount for each ball, and it's consistent. That's how I do it. You dip your stick into the pink, or your chocolate. Right now my chocolate is pink. You would dip it into there, stick the stick into the ball, and that's how you start. You let that set up, and then you dip your ball. But right now I'm just doing the basic dough to show you the feel of the dough and how the consistency. You just won't let it go, will you? The consistency of how it should be. Sorry about my son in the background. No, I don't look great right now. But hey, you know what? The video's up, and that's what matters. So we'll talk to you later. Thanks, guys.